Welcome to another episode of Conundrum with Dre. This week I have a long overdue conversation with a dear old friend of mine. I'm talking, we go way back, like fourth grade, like elementary school. We went through basically from fourth grade straight through to the 12th grade. Louis Sipley is the guest. He is from the Moncton-based metal band Dischord. If you've not listened to them, you need to do yourself a big favor and check them out. They are arguably, I'd say, one of the best, if not the best, metal band in New Brunswick, like ever. So, with that said, I don't want to babble on too long, but the conversation with Louis, very insightful. Some of his musical beginnings kind of coincided with mine. As I said, when you meet at that early of an age, you kind of go through some stuff together, and we certainly did. Now, looking back over the years, during those very important developmental years, going through middle school and high school, so we definitely have gone through some stuff, both on our own and together. Probably the first time we played on stage was together at the school. So anyway, said I wouldn't babble. Here I am babbling. We'll get to the episode with Louis. I hope you enjoy it, and yeah, we'll see you on the other side of the video.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I can see you, but do you see me?
I see the name Louis Sipley. I don't see your face. The whole point is to see your face.
What's going on here? I don't know why it won't show me.
Did you allow?
Oh, here we go. Let's
There you
see.
Maybe there's like an allow video or something. Oh yeah, you're coming up there now. Hey,
Oh,
there's your face. There you are.
I'm just doing this on my phone, so I don't know how the audio sounds.
You're not the first to do it on the phone, so the audio sounds good.
Yeah, I have a laptop, but it's not working well right now, so I have to get somebody to look at it. Right now, it's running Linux, and I kind of want to get rid of that and put Windows on it. Not that I'm a Windows fanboy or anything, but just because a lot of the stuff I want to be able to run on it runs on Windows, doesn't run on Linux. So
I hear you.
when Linux is like it's like if IKEA made an operating system.
I'll take your word for it. I haven't used Linux in a long time. I've got I'm using my wife's old Alienware PC because she got an upgrade and because she needed it. And
Right.
my little shitty Dell kind of crapped the bed, so I kind of inherited the Alienware. So yeah. Anyway, how you doing, man? I haven't seen you in like years. Like
It's been a few years. The last time we saw each other would have been at Plan B.
Would have been Plan B at that, just randomly at that show. Yeah.
It was like that's the one and only time we've seen each other since high school.
Pretty much.
I went there one night. I don't even remember who was playing. I just I used to go to Plan B all the time to watch bands, whether they were local or touring. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
I'd go check it out. And I went there. I don't know who I went to see, and your band happened to be playing that night. Was it the DiBiase's?
We were called the DiBiase's at the time. I believe the Sound Checks were playing. It was us, the Sound Checks, and I want to say either the Kendra Gale band or it was Jacob Strang and the High Class Hussies.
Kendra Gale sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I can't say I've seen Strang and the High Class Huskies. Maybe I did and don't remember, but Kendra Gale sounds familiar.
Yeah, the Jacob Strang and the Hussies were kind of like a funk rock kind of. They did a couple Prince covers, like bluesy rock. Real good musicians. Good buddies with a couple of them. So they're entertainers for sure. Kendra Gale, her and her drummer Warren were super tight. Kendra's an amazing vocalist, and Warren, he's like a brother really to me now at this point. An older brother, much better looking brother, but
Well, the older we get, we all feel that.
You look good, man. You look real good.
I look old.
Fuck that. No, I love the bald look.
Mind you, the lighting in this room kind of gives me that Casper look. Maybe not friendly, but the Casper look. And I don't know what to do about it. So
It is what it is. Don't worry
I should
about it.
probably ask, are we allowed to swear on this? Because I might need to censor myself.
Not at all. No, this is not a censor podcast. This is
Okay.
this is like a passion project I came up with because when COVID hit, I was like, fuck, we're not going to get to play shows. We're not going to get to do the backstage hangs in between sets. I'm not going to get to meet half the people or talk with like a bunch of people from our community. How can I interact with them? And I was like, well, everybody and their fucking dog has a podcast now. So why don't I have one?
That's true.
So I started with the idea of initially talking to drummers. And I was like, you know what? Drummers are cool and all. And I know a lot of them, but that's too limiting. Like I want to get to know people just in the scene, and hopefully through this podcast, people will also get to know people that they might not necessarily get to. Like, so I'm just drawing guests from all different genres, all different instruments and backgrounds, you know.
So like musicians in general.
Musicians in general, but not limited to. Like if there's somebody that's involved in like a different medium of art, then absolutely I'll talk with them, because our artists are fascinating individuals and we all have stories, you know, from where we come from and all that stuff. So that's kind of the goal, really.
So you're going to be editing this later, right?
Only
Because
a little, yeah.
I just want to ask, I'm looking at you in the corner of the screen, but my camera is down in this corner. So I'm wondering if it looks like I'm staring off into space.
No, not at all. Like my camera's up here and I'm looking down here at you. So it's the same thing. It's all
Okay,
good. Yeah.
As long as it doesn't look like
cross-eyed.
I'm, semi-blind.
No, you don't look cross-eyed and you don't look like you're looking off into space. It's all good. I can edit this part out if you want, but I do a little editing.
It's up to you. I just,
Yeah.
whatever you want to do. I'm not really all that bothered by this.
Yeah, I do a little editing, but I try to keep it pretty loose. You know, but so in the vein of this podcast, I've known you for a number of years, even though we haven't had the opportunity to hang out. So people watching this may or may not know who you are. Hopefully they do. And if they don't, hopefully they will. So just to get the ball rolling, we'll go all the way back. So where are you originally from?
Originally from Grand Falls, New Brunswick. Lived there for the first, not exactly sure, the first early years of my life, like at least the first 2-3 years. And then, lived in Bay St. Anne, lived in Miramishi, which is actually where you and I met.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe you and I met in, I want to say 1987.
87?
In the fourth grade.
In fourth grade. Probably. Yeah. Is that when you started at Carrefour?
Yeah. And we spent like the last half of elementary school and most of secondary school.
Mm-hmm.
We were classmates.
Yeah. So I thought you were from Bay St. Anne.
We got into a lot of music together. Like I think a lot of our musical journey, both you and mine, kind of, how should I say this? Kind of coincided.
It did.
We spent a lot of time talking to each other about bands and music and stuff in school. And then, when we both were able to like scrounge up a few dollars and buy some instruments, I remember you and I and a couple other guys, we started jamming in your parents' garage.
Yep. Yeah.
And,
or in the basement.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the time, we weren't all that good, but that's how everybody starts.
We sucked so bad.
I remember I was trying to be polite. We did suck.
We sucked so bad, but that's how it's supposed to be, right? Because
that's how everybody begins. Like I remember we were struggling to try to play like Metallica songs and not even their harder songs, just like
No.
their simple songs we were
Yeah.
struggling to play,
Yeah.
and Black Sabbath riffs and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. So before, like you said, we kind of started our musical journey together. But before then, was there any like music in the family, like growing up? Like, was there any musicians in the house, or like what was that spark for you just initially with music in general?
Well, I think that's actually a good point. I did grow up around music, mostly on my father's side of the family. On my mother's side, there really wasn't much musicality. I mean, my mother's side of the family, they all loved music, but there was hardly any of them played.
Hmm.
But in fact, I can't really think of anybody on my mother's side that played. And if anybody sees this, I'm sorry. Forgive me, I just can't remember.
Yeah.
But on my father's side, my father played guitar, my uncle played guitar. Most of my aunts could sing. One of my uncles could play the guitar and sing very well. I mean, he was a good singer. And now, mind you, the music that they played when I was growing up was mostly, it was either old school country western. So we're not talking like Alan
Good shit.
Jackson, Garth Brooks, the stuff that
Good
was
shit.
around when you and I were in school.
Yeah.
But we're talking old school, like Conway Twitty, George Jones, Gordon Lightfoot, that kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff my father was really into, and I heard a lot of that growing up. That side of the family was also really into bluegrass, which I did not understand as a kid, but I can understand and appreciate it much more now.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't get it as a kid, being fascinated by rock and heavy metal and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a lot of music. Whenever we'd have family get-togethers, there'd always be 2 or 3 guys that would pull out acoustic guitars and start playing songs and singing. And as a child, I'd pick up my dad's guitar and just start strumming along. And I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know how to make a chord. I would just strum along and make random noise. And, my parents would encourage me.
Yeah.
But I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And it basically, my interest in music really started in the late 80s as a kid when I heard AC/DC. And then shortly after, I heard Iron Maiden. And especially AC/DC really introduced me and sparked that love for rock music and hard rock music, and just the energy of it. And growing up in a very religious family, I never heard that stuff. So when I finally heard that through just outside sources, I just happened to hear it one day and I'm like, oh, wow, what's that? Never heard anything like that.
Yeah. And
then I heard Iron Maiden when I was 9. And ironically, it was the song, Can I Play with Madness? And after all these years, still playing with Madness. But when I heard that, that's where everything changed. That's where everything I knew about music changed.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to hear more of it. And so without making the story too long, that's where the initial journey started. That's where that passion for music and that excitement and energy really, that's where the fuse was lit.
Yeah, yeah. And being a lot of people playing guitar, is that what sort of naturally drew you to that instrument? Because you don't play any other instruments, do you?
No, I just always played guitar.
Just been guitar.
I've always admired multi-instrumentalists, whether they're local guys or whether they're international guys, like, Joe Satriani, the guy plays like half a dozen different instruments.
Yeah. My cousin Roland is
I've always
like that.
admired multi-instrumentalists,
Yeah.
But I never really did it. I occasionally thought of it, but
yeah, I wish I could. I mean, I can strum a guitar and, fake my way through a couple of songs and like follow somebody else as they're playing and, just do the rhythm parts. But I for the life of me, I would never consider myself any type of guitar player. Like my cousin Roland, he can play everything under the sun. He'll pick it up. And Roland Beaulieu. Yeah.
Roland, I remember watching him when I was in my teens at Lucas's place.
Yeah.
Roland's incredible. And actually, I just reconnected with him on Facebook over the last year or two.
Yeah, during COVID,
And
he took on like his own solo type stuff and started putting stuff out on his own, just to
yeah,
show his
exactly.
talent.
Actually, I think it was a post that you made,
Yeah,
and Roland commented on it. And then I saw that, and I just remembered that name, and all of a sudden I was like, something along the lines of, "Holy crap! There's somebody I haven't seen in ages." And
yeah, because when you were in Miramichi, he was like 2 blocks away from you.
exactly, like
Yeah,
Lucas and Paula lived directly up at the end of the road from us.
yep.
And so as I got to know, like, I don't know if you remember Peter from Rocksteady Music. That's
It's
how I met
yeah,
Lucas, Roland, and that whole scene.
yeah.
That's how I met them all.
Hmm.
And Lucas, I somehow ended up becoming friends with him and Paula. And so I would occasionally go hang out at their house, and sometimes Roland and a few other guys would show up, and they'd all jam, and I would just sit there and watch them in
Oh,
awe. Like, I was
yeah,
nowhere near the guitar player that these guys were.
yeah.
And then when Roland saw my comment on your post, he messaged me, and he said, he started asking me where I was from. So I told him where I was from, told him about how I used to hang out at Lucas's, and then he started remembering me, and then he
Yeah,
added me on Facebook. And now we keep in touch all the time.
yeah. He's
So
Roland's
it's
an
kind of
awesome.
cool after all these years to be back in touch with him.
Yeah, I mean that's the one positive thing out of all the social media stuff is the being able to reconnect with people from, a bygone era from your life that you haven't been able to talk to. I mean, like what we're doing right now, like that's the one good thing out of all of it that I try to take from it. Try to stay away from all the garbage and all that other stuff, but
Yeah, I try to
sometimes you
stay
can't
away
avoid it.
from the drama and stuff. Like, when I first got on Facebook almost 10 years ago, I used to engage more, especially like on Facebook threads where people were arguing over a certain topic. I seldom ever do that anymore because
It's not
I
worth
guess
it.
I learned the hard way that trying to reason with trying to reason with the internet is like trying to reason with a hornet's nest. So it doesn't matter
Yeah,
what you say or do, you're just going to get a bunch of people stinging you.
yeah, pretty
So
much.
I try to avoid that. I basically just I use Facebook to keep in touch with friends, family, keep in touch with bands, and share music and
Yeah.
funny little stupid shit that amuses me.
Yep.
I try to avoid all the drama and the controversies and conspiracy theories and whatever. I'm getting too old to care.
Yeah. So going back to the AC/DC and then into Iron Maiden, that I guess that would be like a progression from the initial riff rock. I mean, like lyrically, AC/DC, they got some catchy lyrics and stuff.
Yeah,
But the lyrical content from Iron Maiden is a huge step up as far as
oh,
what's being said and the
absolutely.
message behind the songs.
Absolutely. Like with AC/DC, one thing that I've always given them credit for is they found a formula that worked and they stuck with it.
Yeah.
And that's not always a bad thing.
No.
Um,
Have you heard the new
some
album?
people accuse them of just writing the same song over and over. I mean, I don't believe that, but maybe you could make that argument depending on what songs or albums you're talking about. But I remember an interview from Eddie Van Halen from back in the 90s. He was talking about the first time he ever saw AC/DC live in the early 80s. And it was actually when Van Halen was touring with AC/DC. He had never seen them. He knew their music, but he'd never seen them live before they played together. And he said the thing that blew him away about AC/DC was, he said, as simple as their song structures were, he said, it's that pure energy that they have live. He said, you can tell the band is into it. They have that rock and roll energy. He said, all their songs have that constant boom, boom, boom beat that just gets people. And he said AC/DC found a magic formula that works for them and keeps the audiences following them.
If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Angus Young actually said that for years. If it's not broke, don't fix it, because he recognized what they're doing works and it brings people in. Why mess with it?
Yeah. As a drummer, I growing up, the music that I was listening to, I kind of looked down on AC/DC at that time just because it was so simple. And
Yeah,
now I appreciate how much more difficult it is to pull that off, because I can play that same, that Back in Black beat, but it doesn't sound the way Phil Rudd plays it. Like there's just a
exactly. Yeah.
certain thing to what they
I was
do.
fortunate enough to see AC/DC with both drummers. I saw them with Phil Rudd, and I saw them again with Chris
Slade.
Slade.
Yeah.
And they both have their own unique style. But the nice thing about Slade is that when he plays the Phil Rudd songs, he's able to emulate Phil Rudd.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason
So,
why they got him in the band and they did 2 albums with him.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they brought him back when Phil had his, legal issues.
Yeah, his little troubles there.
But he's back now. And have you heard the new album?
Yes, I did. I listened
actually
to it
pretty
once
good.
last year, and I actually enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
wasn't sure what to expect from it because it had been a few years since they put out an album. I mean, well, I guess not that long. They did one in what, 2015?
The Rock or
called
Bust, yeah.
I saw them on that tour. Wasn't crazy about the album, but I liked the show.
Yeah.
But I did listen to the new album last year, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
There was actually a song on that album called "Through the Mists of Time,"
Mhm.
which was the most memorable song on the album for me because it was a different song from what I was used to hearing AC/DC play.
Right.
So to me, that was a cool little
Yeah.
that was a cool little gem.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping if they do another album that they'll have a couple more surprises like that.
Yeah. So this is turning into an AC/DC love fest for some reason. So, but back to you learning how to play the guitar. Who were some of your guitar heroes growing up? Like when you first when you actually picked up the guitar as a serious instrument and tried to learn it?
I'd have to say the one who, I mean, you hear a bunch of different players and they make you think, oh, playing guitar would be cool.
Mhm.
Like when I was a kid, I was into Metallica, and I still love those old 80s albums. They're still to me, some of the best metal ever written. I used to hear that stuff and I thought, wow, it would be cool to play guitar. But the one that made me really want to learn how to play, there's 2 of them actually. The initial one was Eddie Van Halen.
Mhm.
The other one was Randy Rhoads.
Nice.
They were the ones that really made me want to learn how to play. And it was not just, oh, it would be cool to play guitar. They sparked that interest where I want to learn how to play.
Mhm.
So those would be my initial influences. If I had to pick one, it would be Eddie.
Yeah.
But Randy had a big influence as well.
Yeah. Randy's style was something completely out of left field. I mean, with his classical background and what he was able to do with Ozzy in those initial albums. I mean, they still hold up now. And now, I mean, you look at Zach and a lot of guys after that have played with Ozzy, they're just trying to do Randy.
To a certain extent.
Well, I mean,
I'm not sure if I would agree with that completely, but to a certain extent, yes. And I mean, Zach did say that when he plays the Randy songs live, he always tried to replicate those guitar solos and those passages and riffs and everything, because he felt that when people go to see a band and they go to see classic songs that they grew up hearing, they want to hear those songs live, not some other guy's interpretation of it. Now, whether that's true or not, it depends on the person. I'm sure if Frank Zappa was alive, he'd disagree with that. But Zach said that he would try his utmost to replicate the Randy stuff and the Jake E. Lee stuff. But when it came to his own stuff, he'd play around with it because it's your own stuff. Why not play around with it?
Yeah, and I think Ozzy's a big proponent of that too. Because Ozzy always wants the best guys, but he wants the best guys to be themselves when they're creating. So I guess what I meant by the whole wanted to do Randy was when they're doing the Randy stuff, like you said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I say, Zach said he used to strive to be able to play those solos as accurately as possible.
Yeah, and he still does that to this day. Like if you have him on Instagram, like he'll once in a while he'll play a Rhodes riff, and to as a tribute to Randy. So I mean, the influence is there in all those guys.
I remember I remember when I was really digging into Randy as a young guitar player, and just struggling to learn how to play because I didn't really have anybody to teach me. My father was a guitar player, but he was a fingerstyle old school country player, and he used to tell me that he wished he could help me play, but he didn't know anything about how to play the music I wanted to play.
Yeah.
So I used to struggle to learn it on my own. And I mean, every now and then, if I'd meet local players, whether it was Roland or whoever, I would pick their brains as best I could to try to figure out how do you do this or how do you do that. And I remember, well, at the Carrefour, I remember being the only kid in school that could play Crazy Train.
Yeah.
And it's because I used to just sit at home and try to play Randy stuff as much as I could. And of course, Crazy Train was the song everybody knew. And now I haven't played it in ages.
You could probably play it on muscle memory.
I probably could because I played it so much when I was younger, but it's one of those songs that I've heard so much growing up and played so much growing up that I don't care to play it anymore. And that's no slight on Randy.
No.
I just got so tired of the song.
Yeah.
But learning how to play Crazy Train and Over the Mountain, Diary of a Madman, and especially Mr. Crowley.
I love that song.
The extensive accomplishment was learning how to play Mr. Crowley and all the guitar solos. Again, I haven't played that in a dozen years or more, but when I was finally able to play it from start to finish without stopping, that was a huge moment for me.
Yeah. So when we were playing in my parents' garage and just kind of, cutting our teeth with, figuring out instruments. So back in those Carrefour days, that would have been the first time that you played on stage, right? When we played at the Carrefour stuff?
Yeah, exactly. When we did the, whatever that, I don't know, was it a talent show or some sort of gala thing? I can't remember what they called it.
Yeah. We did Enter Sandman.
The reason I entered it was I just wanted to be able to get up and play.
Same
the rest
here.
of it, all stuff that I just had to do. In my mind, I saw it as I have to do all this other stuff just so I can play.
Yeah, just to be on. Yeah. So we did Enter Sandman, and because it was a French school, it had to be instrumental.
Yeah, I remember
English...
even when bands would come to the school to give performances, any English songs they had, they couldn't sing the lyrics.
Yeah.
Which I always thought was silly.
Yeah. So it was you and myself and Paul and Mario, I believe, was we did the Metallica Enter Sandman.
Paul Terrio, Mario Dueron, and oh my God, what's up? His name was LaRock. Last name was LaRock. Steve LaRock. Yeah, he was on bass.
Yeah. Oh, I thought Mario played bass on that.
No, Steve played bass. We actually had 3 guitars on that song because we wanted Mario to play. Or no, we wanted Paul to play.
Because he could do the solo.
He was the only one of us that knew how to play the solo.
Yeah.
But Paul and Mario were good friends, and they used to jam together a lot, and Mario wanted to play. So Paul would only do it if Mario was allowed to come and play. So we had 3 people playing guitar on that song.
And it sucked so bad.
Well, I was going to say it probably worked out for the best because it was the only song I knew how to play. I'd only started playing shortly before that. Yeah. And it's the only song I knew how to play. And looking back on it, I couldn't even play it well.
Yeah. So looking back on those high school years, how did you make it through? Like, cause I know like I went through a lot of shit in through the middle school to junior high. I wasn't really part of the it crowd, if there was such a thing. What was your take on that?
I think there was an in crowd. I was actually thinking about that today because I was thinking this might come up.
Yeah.
But how did I get through middle school and high school? Well, I agree with you. There was a lot of shit. Like you went through a bunch of shit. I went through a bunch of stuff. And I really, for the most part, the only thing I enjoyed about middle school and high school was meeting people who were into music and just being able to introduce people to bands, be introduced to new music, and get together with people like yourself and a few others from time to time and play. Other than that, I really didn't enjoy middle school and high school. And in fact, for the most part, I fucking hated it. Yeah, I think music is what got me through it, because other than that, I don't know what I would have done. Like, I don't know how I would have tolerated it or endured it.
Yeah.
I just,
Because I know I remember there were some pretty dark times.
there were, there absolutely were.
Because like going
Um,
back whenever I would go to your house and we would listen to those metal records, and actually we listen to metal records and then we watch Halloween or Stephen King movies.
yeah, I'm still a big horror junkie, by the way.
Yeah, no, same here. Which if you haven't checked out the Fear Street trilogy that was just put up on Netflix, you really should. It's a really good
I
throwback.
didn't, but my girlfriend actually mentioned it recently, so we'll probably sit down and watch it.
Yeah, you really should. But yeah, like, is that what? Because I know metal and the like a lot of people that don't really understand the genre, they kind of look at it from afar and think it's like it's violent and but when you're going through some stuff, particularly adolescence, it can really be that one thing that kind of pulls you through it. Is that what it was for you?
I think to a certain degree, yes. To a large extent, I think yes, it was. A lot of people back then, and even now, especially back then. I mean, I'm sure you remember. Not only did we go to a French school, we went to a predominantly French Roman Catholic school.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it wasn't officially a Catholic school, almost everybody in that school, with the exception of maybe 6 people,
Mm-hmm.
were French Roman Catholic. So just liking metal had at least half the school or more frowning at you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember me and Paul and Mario and we'd walk down the halls hanging out wearing, Metallica and Guns N' Roses and Megadeth shirts and stuff like that. And people would be looking sideways at us.
Mm-hmm.
And there were times where school staff would come talk to me and say, well, maybe you shouldn't wear those shirts. I'm like, what's on the shirt that's offensive? Well, nothing. It's just, and then they would just kind of trail off.
Yeah, they didn't have an
But
answer.
I know what it was. It was that, like, I mean, my family was very, very strongly Roman Catholic, and very strict about it too, mostly because of my dad and my dad's side of the family. My mom's side, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
But to keep the peace, she kind of had to go along with it.
Yeah.
But we were basically brought up on my dad's side of the family that stuff is the devil's music. My grandmother literally told me as a teenager that people go to hell with that music. My father, I used to have to hide my music from him. He found an Anthrax album one time, lectured me for 3 hours in the kitchen while he sat there and got shit-faced drunk, and then destroyed the album and threw it in the garbage. From then on, that didn't teach me to stop listening to music and be a good Catholic boy. All that did was teach me to hide the shit from him.
Hide it better.
So I made sure I hid everything after that. But that's a lot of the people at school had that same mindset where you got looked down on if you were listening to metal. And I mean, I was the kid that was into Slayer and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really weird. You'd have all these people who were into dance music and country and all that was cool. But if you were into metal, you were the weird kid.
Yeah, it's like the one acceptable metal song would have been Enter Sandman because it was played on Much Music in rotation.
It was so popular. Yeah, and I mean, there were a few others, but by and large, metal was nowhere near as acceptable back then as it is today, 30 years later.
Yeah.
And we're literally coming up. Next month will be 30 years since that song came out and that album.
The Black Album. Yeah. I'm excited for that Blacklist album with all the different covers.
That'll be curious to hear.
Yeah. I've heard a couple tracks on it. It's kind of neat. I recently went back and listened to that Black Album, as well as then I went down the rabbit hole and started, listening to all the earlier stuff. And it got me thinking, Jason got a really bad exit from the band. I remember when that happened because he wanted to do a side project and James basically forced him out. I mean, in hindsight.
Well, James didn't really force him out, but I can see why it came across that way. And James later did admit it.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he realizes he didn't handle it well.
Yeah.
But he didn't really, I guess it's how you look at force him out. But when he found out that Jason was playing with Echo Brain, and he went up to Jason, and they both of their stories match.
Mm-hmm.
He went up to Jason and asked if he was going to be printing merch and doing shows and stuff like that. And he said, yeah. He wasn't looking to upstage Metallica or anything, but in
How could
Metallica
you?
downtime, he wanted to do Echo Brain. But James saw it as a threat.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I don't like that. And he kind of, though I don't remember what he said to Jason, but Jason took it as James was giving him an ultimatum. It's either us or your band.
Right.
And James later reflecting on that, it's in the commentary to the movie Some Kind of Monster.
Yep.
In the commentary with the band, James comments on that scene and says that he realizes he was in the wrong. At the time, James was dealing with a lot of insecurity about Jason. And he said, I realize now that I didn't want Jason to love anything more than Metallica. He said, so when Jason had another band that he was willing to put time and energy into, he said, I felt threatened.
Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
Jason basically saw it as, if you're going to control me, then I can't be in this band anymore.
Yeah, and as anybody would do, right? You can't fault him for that.
I like to think a lot of people would, and I like to think most people would, but I know for a fact that some people, they do give in to that kind of pressure, and they toe the line.
Yeah.
I mean, I know some people in the music business who have done that, and I know some who have stood up for themselves and said no.
Yeah. So coming out of middle school, you left before our graduation year. Like you switched schools, or did you move away? Because
Well,
kind of disappeared on me.
I didn't move away, but what ended up happening is I had failed a couple of courses.
Yeah.
And I didn't have enough credits to graduate that year with the rest of you guys. And I had even gone to the school principal and the school board and tried to plead my case and asked if I could graduate with you guys. I wasn't even looking for the diploma. I just wanted to graduate with the class that I had been with since, fourth grade in 1987.
Yeah.
And I said, I just want to be part of the ceremony. I said, you guys can wait till I finish those credits to give me my diploma. I just want to be part of that ceremony. And they wouldn't let me. So I guess I really had no choice at that point. And then when I looked at how many courses I needed, all I needed were electives. I didn't need any mandatory courses. I just needed some elective, optional courses. Well, I looked at what they had for electives, and there was nothing there that interests me. But when I looked at the school next door, you know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah. MBHS.
Yeah, they had a bunch of courses that I thought, oh, well, this would be interesting. There was a carpentry course, there was a Spanish course, and a couple of automotive courses, shop classes. So I thought, well, I'll go take those. So I ended up transferring to that school.
Okay, that's what happened.
And I got those courses, graduated. And because I went from a French school to an English school, I had to take a test with, I think it was a woman from France. I had to take an in-person test with her, where it was basically her and I just having a conversation for half an hour. And she was recording it, and then she would later evaluate my French. And I ended up getting, I can't remember what my proficiency was, but it was fairly high.
Yeah.
So, but of course I had spent all my life in a French school. Yeah. So I ended up graduating from an English school, but with a high proficiency French certificate.
Which worked out better for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I ended up getting courses that were more interesting to me, and I still got my French certificate.
Yeah. Looking back on high school, I wish that I had transferred out of Carrefour. I mean, I had some good times at Carrefour, but I do wish that I had transferred over to the other school because of all those different electives. Like my son
Exactly.
right now
They had
is,
more to offer.
yeah, my son right now goes to MVHS. He should be graduating next year.
Oh,
So,
nice.
and like, yeah, like all those different electives and stuff. And, you know, there's definitely more opportunity. I mean, it's a small school, so you understand why they have, you know, the basic courses. And I guess since
Yeah.
we were there, they've added a lot of different curriculums. Um,
I
but yeah,
figured they
it's,
probably did. Like, I
yeah,
understood that it was a small school, and compared to MVHS, they were relatively new.
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I can't blame them for only having so much to offer. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's like
So,
I went with what the other school had to offer because it just made more sense.
yeah. So then you ended up moving to, did you move from Miramichi to Moncton, or where did you go
No,
after school?
I moved to I moved to Beresford, which is just, it's a small town, just
Yep.
5-10 minutes outside of Bathurst. Moved up there, and I was there for almost 2.5 years. Then I moved to Moncton. I've been in Moncton now for 20 years.
Okay. And having learned how to play guitar, and you're a damn good guitar player, did you
Thank
go
you.
right into playing in bands in Moncton? Like, how did you break into the metal scene there?
No, when I first moved to Moncton, I didn't even know there was a metal scene, or a music scene in general. I mean, I'm sure that I would have thought there was a music scene, but I didn't know anybody in the area. I didn't uh, I didn't know any of the venues, any of the clubs. I didn't know anything when I moved to Moncton.
Hmm.
I knew nobody at all when I moved here. So it took me a while to discover the music scene in Moncton. And admittedly, I didn't really try to find out about the music scene. At the time, I just kind of kept to myself and went to work, and that was it. It wasn't until about, I'd say, 2006, something like
Okay.
that, where I started really becoming aware of the local music scene and started going to shows. And everything just kind of developed from there.
Okay.
But it was a few years. It was about 5 years after moving to Moncton where I actually started really learning about the music scene and
Okay.
starting to try to not necessarily get involved in it at the time, but at least partake of it.
Right. So were you just going to shows and kind of talking with the different members of the bands and just building a rapport that way? And then,
Well, at first, when I started going to shows, I wasn't, the first few shows I went to, I didn't really go and talk to the bands because I really didn't know what the etiquette was, or I didn't know what the expectations were. I didn't know if you could just go up and talk to the bands. So it wasn't too long afterwards that I started meeting band members and shooting the shit with them,
mhm,
um, sitting down at the bar and talking to them, maybe offering to buy them a beer,
right.
stuff like that. And
Yeah.
it just developed like that. I started talking to bartenders, promoters, booking agents, in addition to band members, and just started learning about the music scene like that.
Yeah. So what was the first band you ended up joining up with?
Well, it depends on what you mean by that. There were several bands that over the years that I jammed with, but nothing came of it. The
Yeah.
first band that I ended up joining and actually playing gigs with was Dischord.
Okay. Which is the band you're with now?
Yeah, I'm still with them now.
Yeah.
It's going to be going on 10 years.
Okay. So you were also
Um,
in Ancient Thrones and Engage the Threat, if I'm remembering.
I was in Engage the Threat I started playing with them in 2016. Initially,
Hmm.
I didn't join them. Their guitar player had quit abruptly, and they had a show coming up in less than a week. And Damon came over to my place and told me, like, he was upset. He didn't know what to do. He said, "Oh man, so and so just, I don't want to name any names, but he said so and so just quit the band, and we have a show coming up on Saturday." And I think when he came to my place, I think maybe it was Saturday. And he said, I don't know what we're going to do. And I just kind of, I had been playing shows for several years at this point, and I was pretty good at learning songs, having to learn them fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, I just kind of said out loud, I wonder how long it would take me to learn your shit so I could help you out. And he just jumped all over that.
Yeah,
He's like, oh, dude, that would be awesome. And then he's just rolled with it. He messaged the other guys in the band. Oh, I think I got a guy who can help us out. And the very next day, I'm at their bass player's place in Amherst. They're showing me the songs because they didn't have any recordings of them.
Right.
And I had only seen the band live once.
Don't have much to go on here.
Yeah, I was half drunk when I saw them. So I wasn't taking notes thinking I'm going to have to learn this shit in a couple of months. So literally a couple months after I saw them, it's like, oh, I got to learn this stuff. So I was at their jam space, and they were showing me the songs. Had no recordings. So I literally had to do my best to remember what they were playing and watch how they were playing it, then go home, try to learn that stuff. And then we had one jam later that week, and then the show was 2 days after that. And I managed to pull off the set.
Well, that's remarkable because that shit's not easy. It's heavy, it's fast. There's a lot of intricacies to it.
Like, I'm sure I did a lot of fuck ups during that show, but the band loved it. And
it's all about the energy.
I was just substituting. I was just like subbing in until they found somebody.
Yeah.
But they liked me so much, they didn't tell me until a couple months later that they weren't even looking for anybody, and they asked me if I wanted to join the band. So I ended up joining them. I was with them for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
As far as Ancient Thrones, they used to be called Abyssal Throne, and that's when I was with them.
Okay.
I remember when they first started, I remember seeing their first few shows in Moncton, and I became friends with those guys. They were young guys, like quite a bit younger than me. And over time, they had some lineup changes, and then I ended up in the band on guitar and vocals. And then I was in the band for a year and a half to 2 years. And then I don't really want to get into too much detail, but I ended up leaving the band. And I remember later on they did change their name. Now they're called Ancient Thrones. And from what I understand, they're still going. I haven't followed them more than that. But yeah, that's basically it. That's basically the two bands in a nutshell. Okay. And as far as Engage the Threat, like Damon and I are still like super close. We still consider each other brothers. Mm-hmm. And as far as Dischord, I'm still with them. We haven't really been doing anything since the whole pandemic happened. Right. But the band still does exist. Just right now, we've basically been on a break throughout this whole thing. And honestly, Luke, the founder of the band, I think he kind of likes it because for the time being, because not only was he the founder and the only consistent member of the band, but he also has been a promoter for many, many years. And with the exception of a few weeks to a couple of months here and there, he never really had a break. Because even if the band wasn't playing for a few months, he was still booking shows, working on shows, promoting them and all that stuff. So he never really had a break. So this pandemic actually kind of worked well for him because it's the first extended break that he's had. So he's gotten to spend a lot of time with his girlfriend and just focus on his private life. So I think he's enjoying the time off. And whenever things open up and we're able to just get back on the road, we'll be back at it.
Yeah. So during the pandemic with the downtime, have you guys been able to like get together and write new material and stuff? I know you guys put out an album a couple of years ago now, I guess. It would be 2019 or no, 18?
18, yeah. Corruption of Innocence.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a fair amount of time. Most bands, 3 or 4 years come up with a new album. I guess the touring cycle for that kind of got disrupted with the pandemic.
It did. Like when 2020, when the pandemic hit in March of 2020, we actually, usually in the winter, we don't travel much just because you know how Canadian winters are.
Atlantic, yeah, yeah.
So we don't travel a whole lot, but we were rehearsing. We had two different projects going. We had Dischord, and and all the members of Dischord also were collaborating on a death tribute, the death metal band
Yeah.
Death.
Death, yep.
We were collaborating on a death tribute, and for both projects, we felt that we were well rehearsed and ready. So the very last jam we had, we said, okay, we're going to start booking shows. So Luke, who handles the business and most of the booking for Dischord, he was going to start booking shows for Dischord. We were planning for a tour that summer and fall. And I was going to start booking for the Death Tribute. And of course, we would keep in touch so that they didn't overlap.
Mm-hmm.
And that was on a Sunday. And Thursday of that same week, New Brunswick declared a state of emergency because of the pandemic.
Everything shut down.
So everything got shut down. We didn't even get to start booking, because when that pandemic hit, we were like, okay, well, before we start booking, let's wait and see what happens with this. And then we saw that a bunch of bands, one by one, it started with smaller bands, and then it quickly jumped up to like international bands like Metallica and all that, where everything got canceled.
Yep.
So
coming out of the pandemic, so coming out of it now, are you guys just gonna like pick up where you guys had that stop and go back to that death tribute and do there, or are you just gonna kind of let that fall to the wayside and focus on something new?
Well, we're going to continue Dischord, of course.
Well, yes.
I would like to think that we'll do the death tribute as well. We did one death tribute show before we had even talked about making it an actual tribute band.
Mm-hmm.
We were asked to do a New Year's Eve show a couple of years ago. So we decided, why don't we just, and the promoter was looking for tribute bands. He wanted 4 or 5 bands to do cover sets of like a half hour apiece. There was a Joan Jett tribute, there was a Clash tribute, Queens of the Stone Age, and there was supposed to be a Ramones tribute, but at the last minute they had to pull out, they couldn't make it. And then there was us with a Death cover set. We had such a good reception for that set, and I mean, we were drastically different from the other 3 acts that played that night, which were all rock bands, and then here we're doing like a death metal set.
Yeah.
And people loved it. Like, we had an amazing reception for it. So we decided, well, maybe we could turn this into like an actual death tribute and do like full 1 hour plus tribute sets.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that we'll pick that up and keep going with it. But I suppose it depends on what the other guys in the band feel like doing. Like, we haven't talked about it in a while. We haven't really been doing band stuff since the pandemic started. Whenever the guys want to get back at it, I'm good to go. But I guess it's just a matter of wait and see.
Yeah, because I mean, right now things haven't quite fully opened up yet. The plan is at some point in mid-August, I think, is when it's supposed to fully open up again, pending the vaccination percentages and all that stuff. So I'm hoping that by the time this episode is out there, that things will be opened up and you'll have a better idea of what direction you guys can take. I would think that if you guys were that well rehearsed to start booking, that it wouldn't take you guys long to get back to show form.
No, I don't think it would. Like, I think that even though we haven't been jamming as a band, we've all been playing at home and working on stuff. Like, I mean, I haven't been working on Dischord material, so to speak, but I mean, I still play at home. I'm still working on stuff, still trying to keep my chops up and learning new stuff at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing the other guys as well as I do, I'm confident they've been doing the same thing. So I think when we get back at it, it won't take long to be show ready again.
Yeah, like a week of rehearsals and you should be good to go.
Exactly. If a band, I firmly believe that if a band really is good at their craft, if the individual members are really good at their instruments and the band is good at what they do, it shouldn't take very long at all to get back up to a stage ready level of preparedness. It shouldn't, a band who's good at what they're doing shouldn't take 6 months after a lull to get ready to play again. I mean, a few jams and they should be good to go.
Depending on how often you can get together, you know.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, because if you get together once a month, it's going to take that much longer.
Oh no, we were pretty strict about it had to be at least once a week.
Yeah. So, just in you know, keeping your chops up and stuff, what inspires you now to keep pushing yourself to keep those chops and learn new stuff?
I'd say a couple of things. I mean, just the fact that I love playing, even though from time to time I may get discouraged, but I think that happens with a lot of people. It's really easy to compare yourself to other people and be like, I'm just not good enough.
That's the worst.
But then one thing that's really helped me is there's a lot of players that I would regard as virtuoso players, like guys who are just, to me anyway, seem to have inhuman levels of skill. Guys like Tom Goldschlager or Christian Menzner, just to name two guys that I think are incredible guitar players. And I've been fortunate enough to become acquaintances with them on Facebook, and keep in touch with them and chat with them. And from time to time, I'll ask them questions, and just follow their posts and stuff like that. And to realize that these guys struggle with the same insecurities as the rest of us do.
Absolutely.
I'll see posts from these guys where once in a while, not very often, but once in a while, they'll talk about how they sometimes question how good they are. They wish they were better. And that encourages me, not because I like to see them that way, I really don't, but it encourages me because I think to myself, wow, if the guys I look up to feel that way, then maybe I'm not the odd man out.
Yeah.
You know, maybe this is a natural thing.
It 100% is.
To wanting to be better.
Yeah, it absolutely is. We're all people. We all have, like, they say, because I have a few different heroes that I've looked up to over the years, and I do the same thing. Like, there's a couple that I communicate with, you know, through Instagram, and you know, I see some of their posts, and like you said, like, they have bad days. There are days where they go up on stage and they fuck shit up. You know, everybody's got a bad day, and that's the whole part of being a musician and an artist, is always striving to improve on the last thing that you did and keep creating and moving forward. Like, I know I'm nowhere near the drummer that I should be at this point, or that I want to be, but I also know that I'm not done my musical journey, and that somebody else is further ahead of me on that journey, and somebody is a little bit behind me on that journey, but we're all on that same road, progressing and getting better and moving forward.
As long as there's forward momentum,
yeah,
it's not for nothing. It's not lost.
Yeah, exactly. So if you can keep yourself moving, even on the bad days, it's still movement.
Exactly. And the other thing, when you asked what motivates me, the other thing, in addition to, you know, looking up to people, like I say, Christian Menzner, Tom Goldschlager, people like that. And if you haven't heard these guys, you really should. They're incredible guitar players. They're just mind-boggling. But the other thing that impresses me and influences me and inspires me is just listening to music. And it could be music I grew up with that still blows me away and still inspires me to be better, whether it's, you know, I mean, you take an album like Megadeth's Rust in Peace. If you can't listen to that and want to be better, then I don't know what to tell you. But the other thing is discovering music. Like, every now and then I'll discover a band that I've never heard of before, and it'll just blow my mind. Like right now, for example, there's a band that put out their debut album last year. I can't remember where they're from, but they're called Symbolic. but it's spelt with a K instead of a C. And they put out their debut album called Emergence. And I heard it last year, and I thought it was all right. Didn't really grab me, but I thought it's okay. A few days ago, I decided to give it another listen, and for the last several days, I can't stop listening to it.
Yeah.
I have probably listened to that album 12 times in the last few days, and I just want to listen to it more. So just hearing music that grabs me makes me want to keep playing.
Cool. That's awesome. All right. I think this is a good spot to end the podcast. I've really enjoyed getting back in touch with you, and I hope we can do this, more regularly. It's been far too long to, have this much of a break in what I would consider, because of those formative years, a really close bond that we had that, unfortunately, everybody grows apart because of circumstance and etc. But
Well, that's it. Like life happens for
life
everybody.
happens. Yeah. So, yeah, we'll definitely have to do this again if you're willing.
Absolutely.
All right, but thank you so much. I appreciate your time, man, and I look forward to seeing what comes out of the Dischord camp and anything else you have coming out.
Well, I appreciate you inviting me. There is something else coming out. I recently put a project together with a few other people. It's a little too early to announce it, but even though whenever Dischord decides to get back at it, I'm going to be on board. I'm still 100% on board with that band. I do have other stuff that I'm working on. So in the next, I'd say in the next couple months, I'll probably be announcing it. We just want to make sure that we don't jump the gun. I don't want to be one of these bands that announces it and then a year later they just kind of fade into obscurity without ever releasing anything or playing the show. So I basically said I don't want to do a Facebook page or any kind of announcement until we have something to present to people.
100%.
But I think in the next 2-3 months we should have something to show people.
Awesome. I'll definitely look out for that and share the shit out of it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Awesome. All right, man. Take it easy. Appreciate it.
You too, man. Cheers.
Right. Bye.
Okay, that was my conversation with Louis. Really amazing human being. Do check out his band. He's got another project coming out that he kind of mentioned at the end, which I still don't know what it is. I'm looking forward to it. So do check that out when it comes out. I will, as I said, I'll share that on my own personal pages if you follow those. The episode and all the previous episodes and everything moving ahead, is on Spotify, so you can listen to the audio version of this. If you are listening to the audio version of this, it's on YouTube, so you can see this mug and all the people that I get to talk to. Was debating on pulling the plug on doing both and just doing audio, but I kind of like doing the videos. It's nice to put a face to the name and to the voice. Yeah. Not going to tell you to like and subscribe. You can do all that if you want. I don't want to ask for a handout. I just like doing these videos. So if you like them, great. If not, try one of the other ones. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, peace, love, all that.